Section 13 of the Endeavour Journal of Sir Joseph Banks. Journal from 25 August 1768 to 12 July 1771 by Joseph Banks. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Recording by Gail Timmerman Vaughan. Section 13. May 1769, Part 2. 1769, May 13. Our friends with us this morn in very good time, as they generally are. Very shortly after sunrise, plenty of coconuts, etc. at the market. After it was over, at 10 o'clock, I walked into the woods with my gun, as I generally did to spend the heat of the day in the Indian houses, where I could be cool from the shade of the trees which everywhere grow about them. In my return, I met Tuburai near his house. I stopped with him. He took my gun out of my hand, cocked it, and holding it up in the air, drew the trigger. Fortunately for him, it flashed in the pan. Where he had got so much knowledge of the use of a gun, I could not conceive, but was sufficiently angry that he should attempt to exercise it upon mine, as I had upon all occasions taught him and the rest of the Indians that they could not offend me so much as even to touch it. I scolded him severely and even threatened to shoot him. He bore all patiently, but the moment I had crossed the river, he and his family, bag and baggage, moved to their other house at Ipare. This step was no sooner taken than I was informed of it by the Indians about the fort. Not willing to lose the assistance of a man who had upon all occasions been particularly useful to us, I resolved to go this evening and bring him back. Accordingly, as soon as dinner was over, I set out, accompanied by Mr. Molyneux. We found him sitting in the middle of a large circle of people, himself and many of the rest with most melancholy countenances, some in tears. One old woman, on our coming into the circle, struck a shark's tooth into her head many times, till it foamed with blood, but her head seemed to have been so often exercised with this expression of grief that it was become quite callous, for though the crown of it was covered with blood, enough did not issue from the wounds to run upon her cheeks. After some few assurances of forgiveness, Tuburai agreed to return with us, in consequence of which resolution a double canoe was put off, in which we all returned to the tents before supper time, and as a token of a renewal of friendship, both him and his wife slept in my tent all night. About 11, one of the natives attempted to scale our walls, intending, no doubt, to steal whatever he could find, but seeing himself observed, he made off much faster than any of our people could follow him. 1769, May 14. Our friends, Dutaha, Oberea, Othiothea, etc., at the tents this morn as usual. It being Sunday, Captain Cook proposed that divine service should be celebrated, but before the proper time of doing it, most of our Indian friends were gone home to eat. I was resolved, however, that some should be present, that they might see our behaviour, and we might, if possible, explain to them, in some degree at least, the reasons of it. I went therefore over the river and brought back Tuburai and Tomio, and having seated them in the tent, placed myself between them. During the whole service they imitated my motions, standing, sitting, or kneeling, as they saw me do, and so much understood that we were about something very serious that they called to the Indians without the fort to be silent. Notwithstanding this, they did not, when the service was over, ask any questions, nor would they attend at all to any explanations we attempted to give them. We have not yet seen the least traces of religion among these people. Maybe they are entirely without it. 1769, May 15. In the course of last night, one of the Indians was clever enough to steal an iron-bound cask. It was indeed without the fort, but so immediately under the eye of the sentry that we could hardly believe the possibility of such a thing having happened when we looked at the place. The Indians, however, acknowledged it, and seemed inclined to give intelligence, in consequence of which I set off in pursuit of it, and traced it to a part of the bay where they told me it had been put into a canoe. The thing was not of consequence enough to pursue with any great spirit, so I returned home, where I found Oberea, Othiothea, Obadi, etc. At night, Tuburai made many signs that another cask would be stole before morning, and thinking, I suppose, that we did not sufficiently regard them, himself, his wife, and family came to the place where the casks lay, and making their beds, said that they would themselves take care that no one should steal them. On being told this, I went to them, and explaining to them that a sentry was this night put over those particular casks, they agreed to come and sleep in my tent, but insisted upon leaving a servant to assist the sentry in case the thief came, which he did about 12, and was seen by the sentry, who fired at him, on which he retreated most expeditiously. 1769 May 16. The morning wet and disagreeable. We hauled the seine in several parts of the bay without the least success. The Indians are so fond of fish, and so expert in catching it, using almost every method we do in Europe, that our want of success is not at all to be wondered at. Tonight, Tuburai, Tomio, Oberea, Obadi, and Othiothea slept in my tent. At midnight, the water casks were again attempted, and 2 shot fired at the thief, which alarmed my bedfellows not a little. They were, however, soon quieted by my going out and bringing back word of the reason of the firing. 1769 May 17. Fine weather. Oberea and her friends went early to Ipare, as the rest of our chiefs did yesterday, in 18 double canoes, so that we are quite dull for want of company in the tents. Tuburai and Tomio slept with me as usual. 1769 May 18. Fine weather and good market. The apples now begin to ripe, and are brought in large quantities, very cheap, so that apple pies are a standing dish with us. 1769 May 19. This morning Tuburai, who had slept with me as usual, was observed by my servant to have an uncommonly large nail under his clothes. This I was informed of, and knowing that no such had been either given or disposed of in trade, was obliged to suspect my friend of theft. I therefore went instantly to his house, and charged him with it. He immediately confessed, but attempted to keep his booty by telling me that the nail was gone to Ipare. I became much in earnest, and a few threats soon produced the stolen goods. I was more hurt at the discovery than he was. I firmly believe he was the only Indian I trusted, and in him I had placed a most unbounded confidence. This event shows more than he could bear. 7 of these nails lay in a basket in one of the tents, and on examining it, 5 were missing. I thought it necessary after this discovery to bring the offender to the tents to receive judgment, which I did. Everybody there was of opinion that his fault was pardonable. I confess that upon thinking over the circumstances, I blamed myself more for leaving the nails in his way than him for stealing them. It was therefore resolved that if he brought back the other 4, he should be forgiven and his fault forgot. This I told him, and he agreed readily, but instead of performing his part, he and his family moved off before night, taking with them all their furniture. 1769 May 20. Rain and very disagreeable weather, so that we had but little trade. About 10, Oberea came to the fort and brought a large present of breadfruit. She had with her Othiothea and her other maids of honour, as we call them, but Obadi, her gentleman attendant, was absent. We inquired the reason. She told us that she had dismissed him. About 8, however, he came by torchlight, and going to the house in the woods, where she slept with her. 1769 May 21. Sunday. Divine service performed, at which was present Oberea, Othiothea, Obadi, etc. All behaved very decently. After dinner, Obadi, who had been for some time absent, returned to the fort. Oberea desired he might not be let in. His countenance was, however, so melancholy that we could not but admit him. He looked most piteously at Oberea, she most disdainfully at him. She seems to us to act in the character of a Ninon d'Enclos, who, satiated with her lover, resolves to change him at all events. The more so, as I am offered, if I please, to supply his place. But I am at present otherwise engaged. Indeed, was I free as air, Her Majesty's person is not the most desirable. 1769 May 22. This morning showery and cool, seemingly a good opportunity of going upon the hills. I went accompanied only by Indians, indeed all of them, but one soon left me. He, however, accompanied me during my whole walk. The paths were very open and clear till I came to the woods, but afterwards very bad, so much so that I could not reach the top of the lowest of the 2 high hills seen from the fort, which was all I intended. I was in some measure, however, recompensed by finding several plants which I had not seen before, with which I returned before sunset, and had Oberea, Obadi, and Othiothea to sleep with me in my tent. 1769 May 22. Trade very slack today, so much so that we have only coconuts for the sick, and the people are obliged to have bread served them at dinner. 1769 May 24. We had received repeated messages from Dutaha, signifying that if we could go and visit him, we should have 4 hogs for our pains. In consequence of this, our first lieutenant was sent today with orders to go to him, and try if by any civilities he could show him he could procure them. He found him removed from his old residence at Ipare to a place called Titahaha, about 5 miles farther. He was received with great cordiality. One hog was immediately produced, and he was told that the others should be brought somewhere from a distance if he would stay till next morning. This he did not at all scruple. The morning came, however, without the hogs, so he was obliged to return with the one he had got overnight, not a little dissatisfied with Dutaha's non-performance of his promises. Messrs. Monkhouse and Green attempted this day to climb the same hill that I attempted on the 22nd, with much the same success. They got, however, higher than I did, but could not reach the summit. 1769, May 25. Tuburai and Tamio made their appearance at the fort for the first time since the breach of the 19th. He in particular seemed much frightened, nor did my behaviour to him give him much comfort. I had resolved not to restore him either to my friendship or confidence, unless he restored the nails, which he seemed to have no intention of doing. After staying a little time, he went home, sulky as he came. 1769, May 26. Mr. Monkhouse, who I think is rather too partial to Tuburai, went this morning to his house, intending to persuade him to come to the tents. He made many excuses. He was hungry, he must sleep, his head ached. In short, he would not, nor did he come. Tamio, however, did, but took alarm at my being absent, who was aboard of the ship and soon departed. 1769, May 27. This day Mr. Monkhouse went to Ipare with Tuburai and Tamio. Market tolerable. Mr. Hicks, in his return from Dutaha, brought word that if the captain would go over, the 4 pigs would be given to him. This produced a resolution of going tomorrow. Though we none of us much credited his promise, yet we would leave no stone unturned to keep him in good humour. I omitted to mention on the 25th that the longboat, being very leaky, was hauled dry, and her bottom found to be eat entirely through by worm, which surprises us much, as the Dolphin's boats met with no such inconvenience. Her bottom was paid with brimstone and tallow. The pinnace, which has been in the water as long as her, is totally untouched, which we attribute to hers being painted with white lead and oil. 1769, May 28. This morning the pinnace set out for the eastward with the captain, Dr. Solander, and myself. Dutaha was removed from Titaha, where Mr. Hicks saw him on the 24th, to Atahuru, about 6 miles farther, a place to which the boat could not go. We were resolved not to be disappointed, so walked afoot. It was evening before we arrived. We found him sitting under a tree with a vast crowd about him as usual. We made our presents in due form, consisting of a yellow stuff petticoat, etc., which were graciously received, and a hog immediately brought, with many promises of more in the morning. Night came on apace. It was necessary to look out for lodgings. As Dutaha made no offer of any, I repaired to my old friend Oberea, who readily gave me a bed in her canoe, much to my satisfaction. I acquainted my fellow travellers with my good fortune, and wishing them as good, took my leave. We went to bed early, as is the custom here. I stripped myself for the greater convenience of sleeping, as the night was hot. Oberea insisted that my clothes should be put into her custody, otherwise, she said, they would certainly be stolen. I readily submitted and laid down to sleep with all imaginable tranquillity. About 11 I awaked, and wanting to get up felt for my clothes in the place in which I had seen them laid at night, but they were missing. I awaked Oberea. She started up, and on my complaining of the loss, candles were immediately lit. Dutaha, who slept in the next canoe, came to us, and both went in search of the thief, for such it seems it was who had stolen my coat and waistcoat, with my pistols, powder horn, etc. They returned, however, in about 1/2 an hour, without any news of the stolen goods. I began to be a little alarmed. My musket was left me, but that, by my neglect the night before, was not loaded. I did not know where Captain Cook or Dr. Solander had disposed of themselves, consequently could not call upon them for assistance. Tupaia stood near me, awakened by the hubbub that had been raised on account of my loss. To him I gave my musket, charging him to take care that the thief did not get it from him, and betook myself again to rest, telling my companions in the boat that I was well satisfied with the pains that Oberea and Dutaha had taken for the recovery of my things. Soon after, I heard their music and saw lights near me. I got up and went towards them. It was a haiva, or assembly, according to their custom. Here I saw Captain Cook, and told my melancholy story. He was my fellow sufferer. He had lost his stockings, and the 2 young gentlemen who were with him had lost each a jacket. Dr. Solander was away, we neither of us knew where. We talked over our losses and agreed that nothing could be done toward recovering them till the morning, after which we parted and went to our respective sleeping places. 1769 May 29. At daybreak we rose according to the custom of our companions. Tupaia was the first man I saw, attending with my musket and the remainder of my clothes. His faith had often been tried. On this occasion it shone very much. Oberea took care to provide me with cloth to supply the place of my lost jacket, so that I made a motley appearance, my dress being half English and half Indian. Dutaha soon after made his appearance. I pressed him to recover my jacket, but neither he nor Oberea would take the least step towards it, so that I am inclined to believe that they acted principals in the theft. Indeed, if they did, it may be said in their excuse that they knew I had in my pockets a pair of pistols, weapons to them more dreadful than a cannon to a man marching up to its mouth. Could they get possession of them, they thought, no doubt, that they would be as useful to them as to us. Self-defense and preservation, therefore, in this case, came in opposition to the laws of hospitality, duties to which mankind usually give the preference in all cases. About 8, Dr. Solander returned from a house about a mile off, where he had slept. He had met with more honest companions than we had, for nothing of his was missing. We spent the most of the morning in trying to persuade our friends either to restore our clothes or to give us some hogs, according to promise, but neither could they do. So we were forced to set out for the boat with only the pig got yesterday, dissatisfied enough with our expedition. In our return to the boat, we saw the Indians amuse or exercise themselves in a manner truly surprising. It was in a place where the shore was not guarded by a reef, as is usually the case. Consequently, a high surf fell upon the shore. A more dreadful one I have not often seen. No European boat could have landed in it, and I think no European who had by any means got into it could possibly have saved his life, as the shore was covered with pebbles and large stones. In the midst of these breakers, 10 or 12 Indians were swimming, who, whenever a surf broke near them, dived under it with infinite ease, rising up on the other side. But their chief amusement was carried on by the stern of an old canoe. With this before them, they swam out as far as the outermost breach. Then 1 or 2 would get into it, and opposing the blunt end to the breaking wave, were hurried in with incredible swiftness. Sometimes they were carried almost ashore, but generally the wave broke over them before they were halfway, in which case they dived and quickly rose on the other side with the canoe in their hands, which was towed out again, and the same method repeated. We stood, admiring this very wonderful scene, for full half an hour, in which time no one of the actors attempted to come ashore, but all seemed most highly entertained with their strange diversion. 1769 May 30. Carpenters employed today in repairing the longboat, which is eat in a most wonderful manner. Every part of her bottom is like a honeycomb, and some of the holes 1/8 of an inch in diameter. Such a progress has this destructive insect made in 6 weeks. 1769 May 31. The day of observation now approaches. The weather has been for some days fine, though in general, since we have been upon the island, we have had as much cloudy as clear weather, which makes us all not a little anxious for success. In consequence of hints from Lord Morton, the captain resolves to send a party to the eastward, and another to Eimeo, an island in sight of us, thinking that in case of thick weather, one or the other might be more successful than the observatory. The carpenters worked very hard to finish the longboat. I resolved to go to the Eimeo expedition. End of section 13. May 1769.